What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Lakers Outsiders podcast. I am Gary Kester. Honey, it's been a long time since we've done one of these. How are things? I feel like I haven't talked to you face to face like this in forever.
Everything's been totally normal, calm. Nothing of any major note has happened at all in my life, or definitely not related to the Lakers. Just everything's going very swimmingly and peacefully.
Yeah, I mean that's why we haven't been on here is because the Lakers never give us anything to talk about, right?
Yeah, they are the most normal franchise in sports.
Oh, my favorite soap opera, the Los Angeles Lakers. What would their soap opera name be? Like As the Lakers Turn or Days
They,
of Our Lakers?
yeah, Days of Our Lakers sounds pretty good.
The Lakers and the Restless, or the young and the no, it's got to be
You know,
Restless.
I was not expecting you to know so many different soap opera titles, but
That's it. It's the three. Oh man. All right. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about. But before we get started, as always, you can find the Lakers Outsiders podcast on YouTube, on iTunes, and on Podbean. Working on getting it on Spotify, so stay tuned for that. But we're doing a new thing where if you want your questions answered on the podcast, go ahead and leave us an iTunes review, and you can drop your question in there. We will, if you drop it in there, we will answer it on probably the next podcast, or every so often we'll do kind of a Q&A podcast, and we will get to it there. So if you have questions, leave them for us in an iTunes review, and we will certainly get to them. So be sure to do that. That helps us out a lot too. So we would really appreciate it. But yeah, like always, you can subscribe to us on there, and you can also find everything up on LakersOutsiders.com. A lot of stuff to talk about lately. Honey, let's start with the big thing. Just an absolute bombshell that nobody saw coming. Not even Jeanie Buss saw coming, which is basic in charge of the show. Magic steps down as president of basketball operations for the Lakers, totally out of the blue. Right before the season finale against the Portland Trailblazers, called an impromptu press conference that I guess went for about 45 minutes, less of a press conference, and I don't even know. But yeah, just total bombshell. I mean, what was your reaction to it, number one, and I guess how are you feeling about the whole situation right now?
The really, really funny thing is that earlier that day, I was talking to some friends who are not Lakers fans, and they were asking about what the odds are that Magic gets fired this year. And I was like, no way. He is safe. He is president of the Lakers for a very, very long time. And then, yeah, that happened where Magic just decided to tell the media before anybody else that he was resigning. And the first reaction was obviously shock and just being utterly surprised that he would do that. And then going through the process of trying to figure out why he's doing this, and all these tweets coming in from different beat writers, and wondering 40 minutes later how he was still talking. Yeah, it's definitely it's crazy. The Lakers just seem to make news every single day, and there are bombshell stories that people aren't even talking about right now because Magic decided that all of a sudden he was gonna step down after about 2 years on the job, 2.5 years on the job.
Yeah, if you want a scope into how massive the Lakers brand is and how much they just demand headlines. I mean, we were heading into the last 2 nights of the regular season where it was all about playoff positioning. There were a couple spots, I think, in the East that still needed to be locked up. And the big story was the final games of Dwayne Wade and Dirk Nowitzki's careers.
Yeah.
And it felt like those totally got put on the back burner because holy
Yeah.
crap, Magic Johnson just stepped down out of the blue and let it slip that he didn't even tell Jeanie Buss that it was happening. So she found out the same way that we all did, apparently.
I'm not sure
Um,
if we can say he let it slip. He made it very clearly known he hadn't told Ginny. I'm pretty sure he mentioned it like 3 or 4 times, and then he went around looking in the tunnel, yelling for Jeannie while media was still around.
I mean, I know next time I quit a job, I'm gonna tweet it out and I'm gonna hold like an impromptu press conference and just let the whole world know, and then I'll go tell my boss.
Exactly.
But no, it's crazy to me that he didn't, go tell her first and foremost, because, they're basically like family, right? They
Yeah.
always talk about how they're like brother and sister and how much they care for one another. And I mean, Magic was kind of like an adopted son of Dr. Jerry Buss. And so Magic's kind of been part of that family for a while now. And to
Yeah.
to do it that way, I don't think it's a great look on him.
Yeah.
I mean, I commend him for saying like, "Hey, if you're not happy with something, like he was, it's like, hey, yeah, Magic, you have a great life, and I commend you for going back to it, and that's great."
Yeah.
Still think that situation could have been handled a hell of a lot better than just like,
Exactly.
"Oh, hey, by the way, I'm done."
Yeah.
Especially when you care so much about the person that Jeanie Buss is and the franchise, right? I mean, he's a NBA icon, he's a Lakers icon, arguably the greatest Laker of all time.
Hmm.
I will say I'm kind of glad. I'm not surprised that he quit. I'm surprised at the timing of it. Like I just never thought that Magic was going to be like a long-term front office guy.
Right.
Right? He has so much other stuff going on outside of basketball that I couldn't see him really committing to it, and really, I mean, from the sounds of it, from what I had learned last year at Summer League, was that he wasn't around that much anyways.
Yeah.
He was maybe around once a week, once a month. It was kind of like when he was in, it's like, oh crap, Magic's here today. Um, so not around a whole lot, but yeah, just shocking at the timing of it. Like last day of the regular season, especially because of, going into this summer. This is one of the biggest summers the Lakers like will ever have. One of the biggest
Yeah.
off seasons. They've been gearing up this whole time for trying to, they got LeBron. I think obviously they wanted to get Paul George last year. Didn't happen, but they're like, hey, there's a lot of good free agents this summer, so we'll create the cap space needed to go after free agents, or max free agents this year, and they're in a position to do that. And it's like, in the drop of a hat, everything changed, right? It seemed like, okay, this is part of the plan. It was a disappointing season, but you can throw it away. A lot of these guys are off the books. You start over again next year. And now it's like, we don't know now who the coach is. We don't know who the president of basketball operations is. We don't know if Rob Pelinka is going to stick around, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. There is so much uncertainty right now going on with this franchise. It's honestly absurd. Like,
Yeah.
am I crazy for thinking that the Lakers right now look worse than the New York Knicks?
No, I mean, you look at the Knicks, and ownership is always an issue with the Knicks, but they were pretty normal this year. They didn't do anything crazy other than the Porzingis trade, which, it might not end up even being that bad.
Honestly, it
They,
might end up looking pretty
yeah,
good.
I mean, considering some off-court stuff, yes.
Yeah.
Um, and they're also going into the summer with 2 max slots. They seem to be the favorite to get Kevin Durant. They seem to be one of the favorites to get Kyrie Irving. They're looking like they're in a really good position. The Lakers, meanwhile, they have the best player in the world. They have very good young players, and they have cap space, and they have all their picks moving forward. That's
Mhm.
huge. Um, almost all their picks. That's pretty huge. But the fact that there's so much uncertainty, there's so much upheaval over and over again. This is, it's going to basically be Brandon Ingram's like third front office iteration since he was drafted, and he's the
Mhm.
longest tenured Laker. It's going to be his second coach, or yeah, it's going to be his second coach. There's a lot of things that have to be fixed up soon for the Lakers to be able to go into free agency with a plan and have an actual pitch to be able to give to other players other than, hey, here's 34-year-old LeBron, who's still pretty good, but he's obviously taken a little bit of a step back.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the point of kind of the position that the Lakers are in, which is why it's so nerve-wracking for me.
Yeah,
Because this just feels like a perfect opportunity for them to clean the slate. I mean, it's pretty clean already. I mean, Magic Johnson's gone now, so you have that president role open. The head coach is gone. Luke Walton has been let go, and we'll discuss Luke Walton on another pod. But like, I mean, if Palinka goes, then it's a completely clean slate. You can kind of start over, and you can get the right people in here. You can conduct an actual search, because when Palinka was hired, they didn't even really search for anybody. It was like, oh well, this guy was Kobe's agent,
yeah.
and we love Kobe, so perfect match, right? But there's a lot to talk about with Palinka, and like I said, we'll get to him a little bit later. But right now, the president of basketball operations role is open with the Lakers, and I guess, is it too much of a hot take to say that might be like the best front office job in the NBA?
Oh no, I don't think so at all. I think it absolutely is. You look around the league. The Pelicans just got David Griffin. They have their position was very interesting because whoever was going to get it was going to have to trade Anthony Davis immediately, which would let whoever that person is, David Griffin in this case, basically clean the slate and start over and build their own team from the start, which is really cool. But the Lakers, like we just talked about, they have so much flexibility in so many different ways, both with their picks, with their young players, and with their cap space, that they and the fact that they're play in Los Angeles, that's pretty big. They're yeah, it's a really really good job in terms of putting it in a vacuum. Look at the roster, look at the assets, look at the city and the market. But the thing that I would be concerned about if I were, interviewing for this job, there's basically two things. One, there is immense pressure because you have LeBron James at the twilight of his career trying to win championships. And basically anything short of a championship is going to be seen as a failure pretty much. Definitely anything short
Mhm.
of the playoffs or like conference finals or whatever. And the other thing is that, again, there's been so much chaos around this team for basically the past decade. Since they traded for Dwight Howard, I think they've had something like, I want to say 10. No, I don't really know the number, so I'm not gonna say it and sound like an idiot. But they've had a ton of coaches since that time. They've had now 3 different front offices whenever somebody gets hired, or if Pelinka just has mass power or whatever. Um, that should be concerning for anybody looking for this job. But again, yeah, you're right that like the vacuum aspect of it, it is like there's so many good things about the job for somebody taking over.
Well, and I don't remember where exactly David Griffin said it, but I think it was probably NBA TV, or maybe he was on like a radio show. But he made it. I mean, he made the point that there are. I mean, he obviously knows front office executives around the league, being former GM. He had to talk to these people all the time and build relationships with them. I mean, he pretty openly stated like people would leave their current front office jobs to take that Laker job,
Yeah,
like, and they wouldn't even think twice about it. And it's for the points that you brought up. I mean, you've got good young talent on this roster. You've got guys like Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, and you've got that max cap space. You have LeBron James, and you have a lottery pick. Like, who knows where that pick? I mean, it's probably most likely going to end up 11th. I mean, which is
yeah,
still a good pick. I mean, it's a borderline top 10 pick. But if the Lakers get lucky and that pick jumps up to the top 4, I
yeah,
mean, the job gets even more appealing. And I mean, that's what would be so frustrating to me if Palinka basically just gets promoted to president, or if they just don't hire one or whatever. Like, is that so many of the brightest like basketball minds would line up for this job, and to not even entertain that those options would be, I mean, to me it would be just malpractice. Like,
yeah,
it'd be incredible incompetency. And it's interesting now because I think this is the first time that really everything is going to fall on Jeanie Buss's shoulders. I think a lot of people, and especially a lot of, I want to say like just more casual fans, really applauded her for getting rid of Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss. I wasn't a fan of letting Mitch Kupchak go. I don't really know how much he had to do with giving those two contracts out.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't know everything that went on behind the scenes. It sounds like there was a lot of kind of miscommunication and hiding stuff or whatever. But I think Mitch Kupchak is a good GM. I think he understands the job very well. And I thought, I would have liked to seen him stay on and you can bring Magic on or whatever. That didn't happen, but I don't know. They've got to me, like, this is Jeannie's last chance. Like, this is because if she botches this, it's going to fall on her shoulders. And I don't know how she's going to handle that because Jeannie has such a big heart and I know her heart's in the right place and she really desperately wants to stabilize this franchise and get it back to, where we're used to seeing them competing for championships and being in the playoffs every year, where it was like, if the Lakers were like a 6 seed, that'd be a disappointing season. Yeah. And it's like, now we have a freaking parade just to get back into the damn playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think for the most part, she's kind of been able to kind of dodge the blame a little bit. And, not saying that she should have been blamed or anything, because again, I don't know exactly what goes on behind the scenes, but before it was Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak that got the blame. Now it's kind of Magic and Pelinka, and I don't even know if Pelinka is getting blamed a ton, especially not in the front office circles apparently. But yeah, now this is her chance. This is her big moment, and if she doesn't, if she just looks at it as keeping it in the family, sticking with Pelinka because he's a Kobe guy or whatever, to me that would be, I don't know, like people should be or Laker fans should be genuinely upset, and there should be a ton of uproar if that's what happens, because this is such a golden opportunity to get somebody that's excellent at building a team, running a franchise. And like you can interview the brightest minds, and really, to me, it would almost be harder to mess this up than it would be to like make the right hire, because I feel like there are a number of qualified candidates out there that could at least be solid at this job with the advantages that come with being the Lakers. Like the Lakers have all the financial resources to get the best people, get the best training staff, which the training staff is gone. So that's another part of kind of wiping the slate clean. And, an analytics department that apparently just feels like non-existent at this point. Yeah, it's such a golden opportunity. Like it's right there for Jeanie Buss, and they've got to take advantage of this.
Yeah, those financial resources that you're talking about, it's what we've been saying for years now, is that the Lakers have a buttload of cash and they should be using it in these ways where they're not hampered by cap space. And that involves paying your executives, which, to be fair, they were paying Magic a ton of money, from what people have reported. But like it's not only just paying that executive. There's all sorts of franchises now that when they're looking for a new front office, they hire a search firm, and they pay a ton of money for those people to come up with a list of candidates that would fit them, and then they hire out of those people. And that's not something that the Lakers did when they fired Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak. They basically hired Magic on the spot, and then they hired Pelinka on the spot without a search. Even hiring Luke Walton was basically done without much of a search. So, hopefully that it's something that they've learned from that mistake after how this season went. I'm not super confident or optimistic in that, but, ideally, Jeanie is a smart person. She's been at the helm for a few years now. She's seen how this has gone. She's seen how much of a lack of trust there has been. And Jeannie's always been the one who says that I don't touch basketball stuff at all. I want, the people in charge of the basketball operations to be the ones that handle it. That kind of didn't really happen so much this year. Not that she was obviously like meddling in all the roster decisions, but she was 100% supporting Luke and preventing the front office from firing him earlier in the season. And to me, that says that she didn't have much of a trust in Magic and Pelinka and how they had handled things. So in an ideal world, she hires the sort of candidate that she can trust to do that, so she doesn't have to feel like she has to meddle.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's just so frustrating that like the Lakers are in this position to me, because like this is such a, I don't know. It just seems like it's right there in front of them, and they just like I get hiring people that you trust and like wanting people that you trust. Like that's totally fine. But at the same time, like it's not working.
Yeah.
I mean, this is 6 years in a row now that the team has missed the playoffs. They didn't even come close. Like I was thinking about this the other day, but if it doesn't feel like that long ago that they were like a game or two out of the 8th seed, and it
Yeah.
was like, okay, like they're right there. All they got to do is go on a little run and they'll be right there.
You're right.
And they fell out of the playoffs by 11 games. Like they finished 10th in the West, and they weren't even close to sniffing the playoffs when it was all said and done.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wrote about Luke Walton today, shameless plug, or yesterday now. But it was an unfortunate situation because of just the way the team was built for him.
Yeah.
And like I said, we'll talk about that in another podcast. And this whole season was botched after they signed LeBron. Like everything else after that was just kind of a disaster, minus the JaVale McGee signing. Like JaVale was like the only guy I think that was like an overall net positive from the free agents after LeBron. And I don't know, because from what it sounds like is that like Magic kind of signed off on things, but it's Pelinka that is kind of running the daily stuff, because there's been a number of reports out there now. There's a lot of kind of smoke around this that Magic's backstabbing comment and how he didn't like the backstabbing and whatnot might have been aimed at Pelinka, because apparently Pelinka was going around and telling, or asking people, hey, have you guys seen Magic? Like, where's Magic at? And I mean, really that kind of fits the bill from what all the stories about Pelinka are.
Yeah.
And it's just so alarming. It is so alarming to have Rob Pelinka run things, because I think going back to the trade deadline, we talked, I mean, the podcast that we did post deadline, talking about all the New Orleans drama and whatnot, and how they only wanted to talk to Magic.
Right.
And I think the point we made was they wanted to do that because they wanted to take advantage of Magic.
Mm-hmm.
While that might be true, I think another factor there is they didn't want to deal with Pelinka.
Right.
Like, especially because New Orleans and Pelinka have a lot of bad blood because of the whole, when Eric Gordon was playing there and he was a restricted free agent, and they wanted out of New Orleans. They made it very publicly clear. And Pelinka like trashed New Orleans. He trashed their organization, and just, I mean, did some real sleazy stuff to try and make it happen. And it worked, I think. Was he traded? I can't remember if he was signed and traded or if they just finally let him go. But I mean, Eric Gordon got out of there, but it was just like that stuff just doesn't sit well. And like people don't forget that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And I get it that you're trying to get somebody in that role of a GM or a president of basketball operations that is a competitor. I mean, you're competing against these teams, but you're also in ways working with them. And it sounds like, I mean, there's just a number of stories out there. I actually want to research this and do a piece on it, but it just sounds like there are so many teams out there that just don't want to do business with Rob Pelinka. And that's so problematic for, the Lakers. Cause I mean, the Lakers are a franchise built on making transactions, like splash transactions, to build their roster. Right. And so, like, I mean, we saw it this year. Like, who knows if Anthony Davis would have actually been attainable if we had a front office that people liked.
Yeah.
It just seemed like the Pelicans, from what was, I mean, everything that was publicly leaked, it was like they were just stringing the Lakers along intentionally. It was like, okay, these are our demands. When the Lakers met those demands raised even more. And then when they met them again, they raised more. So like it just kept on going and going. And I'm worried now, especially that if Pelinka takes over, is he going to go back to that now that David Griffin's there? Because I think David Griffin will at least cooperate with the Lakers because David Griffin understands like, hey, I have a job to do. I've got a superstar that's going to leave us next summer and we'll get nothing for him.
Yeah.
So I could see David Griffin being willing to trade Anthony Davis to the Lakers if that's the best deal that's presented. We'll see where the Celtics factor into the equation with Kyrie Irving and if they'll offer Jason Tatum or whatnot. But yeah, it's a little terrifying to me that Pelinka goes back to that and says, hey, we'll give you the same offer. We'll give you all of our young players. We'll give you multiple picks, including this year's lottery pick.
Right.
And then you have LeBron and Anthony Davis, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's so worrisome for me. Like,
yeah, I mean, when they got hired, the big thing was both of these dudes are very inexperienced in their jobs. Neither of
they
them
had to go to
has ever
CBA school.
Neither of them.
The Los Angeles Lakers hired people to work in this position and these positions that didn't even understand the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
They could have hired me for that.
And it's legitimately, I would have taught them that, and it would have been really good for me. I could have made some money.
I mean, if we were running the Lakers, we'd still have Julius Randle and D'Angelo Russell. I can guarantee you that.
Absolutely. We would also still have Marcelo Huertas.
Well, I might fight you on that
one. But yeah, that inexperience has clearly kicked their butts numerous times. You know, the fact that they were even going back to the D'Angelo trade, which I know people get tired of because it's discussed like ad nauseum. But, you know, thinking that you have to trade this guy probably at the lowest his value is ever going to be to get rid of a contract that still had, I believe, 2 years left on it or 3 years left on it at the time. And, you know, basically a summer or potentially 2 summers before you ever needed to use it, which it's going to end up being 2 summers before they needed to use it. Like, that was clearly a very stupid trade. They didn't have to do it at the time. And, you know, the same thing has kind of reared its head with their, you know, how they built the roster this year, where they watched a few playoff games, and because the Rockets, I guess, only took the Warriors to 7 games, they're like, nah, we don't need shooters. We need playmakers that can't shoot. By the way, there are players in the league. It's crazy to think about this, that can make plays and also shoot.
There's players that can actually shoot and play defense too. Like, it's weird.
It's crazy that not every single player in the NBA is a specialist. But yeah, those issues have reared their heads over and over again. And yeah, I'm not very optimistic that Pelinka has like gotten so much experience over these 2.5 years, and now he truly understands what manna from heaven is and gets actual good players to surround LeBron with, or it makes a value trade to get him a second star or whatever.
All I'm saying is, if we have to sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to another 1-year deal worth like $14 million, I'm gonna lose it.
Listen, KCP does some good things sometimes.
Excuse me, Kenny Caldwell-Pope.
Kenny,
I think is his name now.
Kung Fu Kenny Caldwell-Pope.
But yeah, I mean, when you think like the thing that's so worrisome for me with Pelinka is when I look back at all the moves, right? Because to me, getting LeBron was a Magic thing. Yeah. Like, I think having Magic, I think LeBron pretty much had his mind set up on like the like end of my career. I'm gonna spend in LA. I'm gonna start building my off-court empire, like to set up his post-playing career and all that stuff, which is great. Like he's arguably the greatest player of all time. Like, he should be doing that stuff. Like, he has that power. Yeah. And I love it when players understand their worth and their influence. And he's done some amazing things off the court, and he's going to probably continue to do that. And LA was a great platform for him to do that, and especially playing for the Lakers. But I also think, I think he was pretty set on going to the Lakers, especially once he got that title in Cleveland. It was like, okay, he doesn't have anything else left to prove there.
Right.
But I think having Magic really helped seal the deal there. I
Yeah.
think if they had Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss, I don't know if that gets done because I mean, I'm a big Mitch Kupchak fan, but that guy has no charisma whatsoever. Like he might as well be a zombie. I think he does a good job, and I think he understands the job very well.
Yeah.
But it's not. I don't know if he's a guy that would have like really clicked with like LeBron and Rich Paul and all those guys.
I don't know, man. Every time I've heard Mitch talk, I wanted to run through a wall for him.
He is like, I do miss that about him being the GM, is that like he would say absolutely nothing, yet I felt so reassured on where the Lakers stood.
Long-winded answers that meant nothing at all.
Yeah, but I was like, I just feel comfortable about it. So, I mean, it's a hell of a lot better than just breaking out random ass Bible verses and stories and God. But when I look back on everything else after LeBron, because the more you kind of read into it, the more it sounds like Pelinka is the one making these moves. It's just kind of Magic was signing off on him. I mean, when we think about the moves that have been made, they're not good. Like JaVale was good. I will, and I'm not even saying that just because you're on the pod. Like
Let's go,
JaVale was
Pat.
legit. JaVale was legit good, and like he even dealt with pneumonia like halfway
Yeah.
through the season. Like he was good. He was a really good player, and I honestly he's one of the few I'd like to see back next year. But like Lance Stevenson wasn't good. Rondo was good for about 3 games, I feel like. I mean, he was hurt a lot, but it's like does not play any defense, and he's probably a good off-court presence. It sounds like he makes really good cookies.
Yeah, I
Apparently.
know. I really want to try some of his cookies and his sandwiches, apparently, too.
Yeah. Now I'm hungry. Yeah, good nice Rondo cookie and a sandwich. But I think Rondo handled himself very well off the court, so I don't want to trash him too much. But I don't like him on the court anymore just because of defensive purposes and just kind of the way he plays. Like the Lakers picked up a bunch of guys that kind of need the ball to be effective,
Yeah.
and whenever Lance got the ball, I was just like screaming at him to pass it because the ball just stops all the time. But like Michael Beasley was picked up, um, and Beasley out of he can basically replicate what Julius Randle can bring. Huge swing and a miss, like colossal swing and a miss on that. Which I feel bad for Beasley because like I'm not going to judge him this year because like he was dealing with so much crap off the court.
Yeah.
And the Lakers, I feel like he didn't really get a fair shake with the Lakers. Because like I actually like Beasley as a player in a certain role, but the Lakers didn't utilize him correctly, and that was just a total failure. So it's like you've got all those signings, and then you let Thomas Bryant go, who had a really good year with the Wizards. So gave up on another young player way too soon for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They let Julius Randle and Brook Lopez go, reportedly against the wishes of the coaching staff. It sounds like Luke Walton and his staff didn't have really any say in how the roster was built,
Yeah.
which is total dysfunction.
Yeah.
Like that's not how smart franchises operate. Like everything needs to be synced together and everything needs to be in line, and the communication process needs to be streamlined from top to bottom in that aspect. And I mean, like they let good players go, gave up on them too early. We traded Ivica Zubac for Mike Muscala, who was just a gigantic dud until about the last week of the season. All of a sudden, he could start making some shots. Like
those threes were so valuable.
Yeah, so great. It's like the difference probably between the 11th and the 9th pick, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, like that trade looks so stupid now. I mean, to the point where it's like reports were the Clippers were literally laughing at the Lakers that they offered that.
Absolutely. Like they were going to cut Muscala. They were not even looking around to try to trade him for anything. And
Yeah,
the
like
Lakers were like, wait.
He was like a throw-in on the trade I think that they made before the deadline. I can't remember what trade it was specifically, but
it was the Tobias Harris to Philadelphia trade.
Right, that's what it was. Yeah, and they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, you want to give us this young center that is having a good year and obviously works. You can show, like, you can see that Zubac like works hard because he's transformed his body quite a bit since he came into the league, and he's gotten better. And I mean, he's so lovable. Like, he was such a fan favorite. So I was like,
Can't
just
believe you did that
all
to
these
David.
moves. And I didn't yeah. I didn't mind the Reggie Bullock trade because like Bullock is a quality shooter. He's one of the best shooters in the league. So like I get what they were doing with that. But at the same time, when you think about what else they could have done there, like they sacrificed the second round pick, which I mean isn't a huge deal because a lot of times second round picks don't pan out. But
Yeah.
I think the Lakers scouting department has shown, enough chops to say, hey, give these guys enough picks and they usually can, find a guy that's worth at least investing in and trying to develop.
You're right.
And so they gave up a young prospect who I think showed signs of promise. I mean, it wasn't clicking right away, but I think Svi Mikhailuk could have been a solid player down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And a second round pick for Reggie Bullock, who's a free agent. Who knows if he's going to be back? Apparently, he wants to be back. But it's like if he leaves, then we just gave away a prospect and a second round pick for nothing, especially when we could have gotten somebody like Wayne Ellington on the buyout market.
Right.
No cost whatsoever because the Lakers had an empty roster spot. So just so many things that were done in the past year have just been incredibly dumb. And really 2 years because like looking back on the D'Angelo trade, sorry to bring it up again, but that trade was made with the idea of clearing cap space for two max guys.
Yeah.
They got one. If they don't get one this summer, like to me, that trade was a failure because LeBron could have been had without that trade.
Right.
People really forget that, and it's kind of irritating. And I know people say, "Oh, the trade got us Kyle Kuzma." Did it really though? Because Lakers had the next pick anyways.
Right.
From
And the Nets have literally said they were not going to draft Kyle Kuzma. Like it's almost like Sean Marks saw people say that they traded Kyle Kuzma for D'Angelo. Is like, nah. Listen, that's not what happened.
Yeah, like literally was asked about it and was like, no, we were not going to pick Kyle Kuzma. And like gave the Lakers credit. It was a great pick. But so basically they traded D'Angelo Russell for Josh Hart, which believe it or not, there are still people out there that would prefer Josh Hart over D'Angelo Russell, and it blows my freaking mind. Like I love Josh Hart. I think he's a great role player, like the type of role player that you have on a title team, like makes winning plays, does the dirty work, all that. But it's like you gave up a kid that is now, I think D'Angelo just turned 23. But he was like already an all-star, and I know it was in the Eastern Conference, whatever. But like he had a legitimately good year, and he's continuing to get better. He's continuing to mature, and it's like Magic made the comment that, oh, D'Angelo grew up. It's like, well, you kind of got to give him time to grow up, and you got to give him like the, support to help him grow up. Like when you're going to draft one and done guys that are 19 years old, you're probably going to get some that are immature.
Yeah.
Like they're teenagers, like entering like this massive world of grown men, that they're trying to figure all this stuff out and learn how to be adults, really. So yeah, I'm not going to keep going on with that, but it just kind of goes back to the point that they've given up on young players before they could really blossom. I mean, Randall was coming off his best season, and the Lakers showed no interest in him whatsoever.
At all. And
That
that one blows my mind even more than the D'Angelo one. Like
Yeah.
the D'Angelo one was awful at the time. And, in hindsight, it still looks pretty bad. But like at least there was somewhere in your head you can come up with an excuse of, all right, well, next year if they sign a all-star or a superstar or whatever, then it was worth it. With the Julius one, like the alternative was like signing Rondo, I guess.
Yeah, they used that space to sign Rondo.
It didn't do anything for this team. It made no sense whatsoever.
Rondo was the third best point guard on the team this year. I mean, like, letting that sink in, it just kind of like irritates the crap out of me because it was like Alex Caruso. I mean, we've known Caruso as like a solid player, I mean, maybe they didn't think he could play like this for a full season or whatnot. I don't know. But it's like he's been as a part of the team now for a couple of years. Like, know what you have with him. And I don't know. Like, just all these moves don't make any sense, especially the Randall one, because like he did everything that they asked of him.
Yeah.
they were like, oh, we want you to get in great shape. We want you to transform your body. He did that. And then he had a great year playing next to Brooke Lopez. And then the Lakers were just like, or Pelinka and Magic were just like, nah, we don't want you guys.
Yeah.
And so that just worries the crap out of me that, like, I don't know really what Pelinka has done that warrants like optimism at this point. And he's leading this coaching search according to Ramona Shelburne. And I don't know, to me, if the guy's leading the coaching search, it means he's staying, and that scares the living crap out of me.
Yeah, I mean, this has been what I've been thinking about this for months now, but it's kind of this cyclical thing that happens with the Lakers where they fall ass backwards into some sort of success. Let's say signing LeBron. They basically got lucky enough to sign LeBron because it was towards the end of his career and he wanted to live in Los Angeles. The only things that they did to make it possible were basically the trade trading Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance to Cleveland, and then having Magic be charismatic. Pretty much the only things that they did. And the second one, we don't even know how much that really impacted anything. And then they screw around on the margins. They don't get good players with them, and they have a disappointing year. And this summer, even with Pelinka on board, I could 100% see them getting lucky and signing probably one of the lower tier, like of the max guys that are available. Let's say Jimmy Butler, let's say Kemba Walker. Sure, that's a solid, two-man punch with LeBron and whatever player they get. But I don't have any trust in Pelinka, who, again, we think was the mastermind behind this team, finding quality role players again so that, it makes sense. Like, this version of the NBA, you don't win with just two stars. Like, maybe a decade ago you could.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. There are way too many teams that have 2-3 stars and they have really, really good role players. Most often ones that they've developed on their own, but also ones that they get for quality value that other teams miss out on. If you're not able to do that, you're not going to be successful. Even if, let's say, Kevin Durant leaves Golden State and they take a hit, the Lakers with like LeBron, Jimmy Butler, and a team like depth pieces that were as bad as this year's are not even close to contending with the Warriors, I don't think.
Yeah.
So like you said, it terrifies me that Pelinka seems to be the guy moving forward, if that is true, because he has shown nothing for us to be able to trust that he can build a solid team around whatever stars or star that he has.
Yeah, it's almost, it's frustrating that the other team in LA knows how to do that stuff. Like, if you look at the moves that they've made, like they don't have a star on that roster. Like, they traded away the 2 stars that they had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and traded away DeAndre Jordan too, let him go, right? They traded him or let him walk?
No, he was a free agent.
That's right. Let him walk. But still. Yeah. And then, like, everybody thought, oh, they're going to be terrible now. That big 3 that they had between Jordan, Blake Griffin, and Chris Paul, they're all gone. Mm-hmm. They're going to be terrible. Like, their best player is Lou Williams or Tobias Harris. And they traded Tobias Harris and they kept winning because I mean, Jerry West and, their front office, like, they built a team. And the Lakers haven't shown any kind of inclination to really do that. It's been another red flag for me with Pelinka and Magic when he was here with the Lakers was the incredible, like, close-mindedness of preserving cap space. Like, you don't have to just sign 1-year deals to have, like, cap space. Like, you can make trades to free up cap space. Like, when the last, like, real, I'm trying to rack my brain for, like, the real value signings that the Lakers have made. Lou Williams jumps out because he was like 3 years, $21 million, which was like a steal for how good of a player he is. But it's like those types of contracts, those are so movable.
Yeah,
like,
and they got a first round pick for it.
Yeah. Like you can move those so easily, and the Lakers haven't operated like knowing that, where it's like, hey, we can still get these valuable players on good contracts,
Mhm.
because use Los Angeles, use the Laker brand to your advantage. You can get those kind of signings. They're not going to come all the time, but you can, like, those are out there. I mean, Seth Curry, I think, signed with Portland for the same contract that Lance signed with the Lakers.
Yeah.
And it's like Seth Curry would have filled a role a hell of a lot better than Lance Stevenson would have. I mean, we
Mhm.
wouldn't have the air guitar thing, but that's beside the point. But um, but yeah, I mean, like they just, the fact that they didn't, it's like they didn't even think of that, where it was like, oh, we can only do 1 year deals,
Yeah.
right? Like we have to preserve that cap space. It's like you can move these contracts, like Julius Randle's contract, for example. Like with the one he signed with the Pelicans, it was like 2 year. I don't remember if it's a team option or a player option, but that was a very movable contract in terms of like financials.
Yeah.
And it's like you could have done that, you know? Like there's just been so many missed opportunities, and it's like the guy that supposedly has been in charge of all that and like been like the architect of that is going to get possibly promoted or like keep his job and like be able to continue running the show because Jeanie trusts him and Linda Rambis trusts him. Like basically, from what it sounds like and everything I've read or heard or whatever, is that Pelinka is not liked around the league. He's not liked within the Lakers organization, but he's liked by the right people.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's a very select few, but it's the right few. And that's just terrifying to me that they're going to really fall into, like, they might actually fall into this trap of letting this guy do this. And it's like teams don't want to work with him. And a lot of players and a lot of agents don't want to work with him. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people around the league that just don't like this guy and don't want anything to do with him. And it's like players are going to turn down the Lakers because no, like we don't want to work with this guy. And especially if he's promoted, or even if he stays in his GM role and they want to try and hire a president of basketball operations. It's like, how many guys are going to say, no, like, I don't want that job now because I don't want to work with Rob Pelinka? Because
Yeah.
apparently, I don't remember who was saying it. It might have been Dave McMiniman. It was one of the LA beat writers today. I did see it on Twitter because they've been making a lot of rounds on like radio shows and talk shows and whatnot. But basically, the two Buss brothers, Jesse and Joey, who work within the Lakers organization, they don't trust Rob Pelinka at all, but
Mhm.
Jeanie does. It's like there's this incredible disconnect that is so alarming to me. And like you have a Lakers organization that's so divided and nobody's on the same page. And it's just like, I mean, it's dysfunctional. Like to
Yeah.
me, that is NBA dysfunction right there. And we're going to continue to promote dysfunction if we keep Rob Pelinka. Like usually I don't advocate for like somebody losing their job or whatever. And I'm
Yeah.
not like rooting for Pelinka to get fired. Like I'm rooting in the Lakers' best interest. Like this guy does not sound like a good dude from
Mhm.
all these stories. Like he sounds just kind of like a snake.
I mean, so just in the past like 2 weeks, we've heard Corey Brewer was pretty crucial in Paul George not even giving the Lakers a meeting. We've heard Andrew Bogut said that the Lakers basically lied to him about his role on the team. We've heard a report of Pelinka telling Larry Nance that he would only trade him for a top three player in the league and to
Wow,
buy a
Isaiah
house
Thomas
in
isn't that?
LA. I mean, um, I guess technically LeBron, and to buy a house basically weeks before he traded him. And then he said the same thing to Kyle Kuzma, who eventually was put into part of the rumors for Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, yeah, you hear all these stories. That's what, four players there that have had some reason to not trust this dude. And NBA players talk. And it's going to be the same case. All these veterans that aren't going to be on the team next year, they're going to be on other teams next year. And they're going to be, if they have teammates asking them, hey, I have I'm thinking about joining the Lakers. What can you tell me about the organization? Why would they not tell them that it's as dysfunctional as it is?
Yeah.
I mean, like we hear all these stories about basically what has gone on, and that's probably like, I mean, I think it's fair to assume that that's only a portion of all the crap that goes on behind the scenes that is probably really messed up. Like they're not letting everything leak, but there's, a
Oh
portion of
yeah.
it does, and there's a ton of things that are probably going wrong that we don't even know about, and the
Mhm.
players do, and the coaches that just got fired do. So yeah, it's a huge issue because it's just the entire reputation of the franchise has dwindled so far over the past decade, really, but especially over like literally just the past 2 years.
Yeah. Soap opera.
Yep.
It's a soap opera, man. Like you couldn't write a better like drama series than the Lakers do. And like they're actually trying to be apparently like a normal franchise that gets back to winning championships and all this stuff, but they're just right now it's like I don't curse on the podcast very often, but it's a shit show.
Yep.
Like it is a total shit show right now. And it blows my mind because they have all these advantages that basically just, fall into their lap by
Yeah.
being the Lakers and being in Los Angeles and all this stuff. And they don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's incredibly frustrating. I was very optimistic when Magic stepped down because, like I said, I just don't like. I don't mean to trash Magic Johnson. He's, an incredible ambassador for the Lakers, and the guy is. I mean, honestly, like I said, he's a Lakers icon, and I mean everything he's gone through in his life. Like,
Yeah.
I don't mean to trash the guy. I just never thought he was fit for that role. So I'm happy that he's doing what's making him happy. He can tweet whatever he wants now. Magic, fire away on those tweets. But man, if Pelinka stays on, it just feels like all for nothing. So the slate is almost wiped clean. Hopefully Jeanie I don't know, takes the blinders off, does something out of her comfort zone because it's gonna fall on her shoulders now. Like it's time to step up.
How funny would it have been if after the Luke news dropped
Oh
today,
my goodness.
Magic tweeted, "Happy days are here again." Luke Walton.
Oh God. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for us this time. Like I mentioned at the start of the podcast, if you like the pod, you can always subscribe to us on iTunes, on YouTube, and on Podbean. Working on getting it loaded to Spotify as well, so stay tuned for that. You can find all of our content on LakersOutsiders.com. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. And again, if you have questions that you want us to answer on the pod, leave them for us in an iTunes review. Just go ahead and give us a rating and leave a review, and you can leave the question in there. And I will be checking that daily to see if any new questions pop in. And we will, if there's a review in there with a question, we will answer it on the podcast to the best of our abilities. And so yeah, do that. And that, like I said, that helps us out a lot. And we love getting questions from you guys and feedback, and always looking for ways to get better. And I mean, we also like hearing nice words. So yeah, so we've got a lot of pods planned in the near future because there's quite frankly so much to talk about with the Lakers. We can't do it all in one pod, or the damn thing would go for 8 hours. It'd be like a full shift.
That would actually be a decent idea. We could do that one time.
An 8-hour pod. Hey,
Yeah,
get
just rotate people in.
get get some people through their entire workday.
We just can't have Luke handle how we rotate players in because he wouldn't stagger us. All right, sorry. I love you, Luke. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'd have Drew in at the start of the fourth quarter. Oh man, I feel good about poking fun at Drew. But yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening again. Hit us with those iTunes reviews and hit us with questions in there. We will definitely get to those. I appreciate you listening, and until next time, this is Gary Kester with Honi Ahmadian and Lakers Outsiders signing off.
Shout out like Jesse Mermies, man.